OCALI, Inspiring Change for People with Disabilities. I want to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on OCALI's website for educational purposes. Today's session of Ask Abbey and Friends, Word Recognition Toolkit for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Learners, is on visual phonics. Our objectives today: first, to explain what visual phonics is and who can benefit from this tool, and to list 3 ways visual phonics can be used to build phonological awareness skills for deaf and hard of hearing learners. With us today to present on this topic is Abby White, a teacher of the deaf in Ohio. Let me turn things over to Abby.
Hello, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I can imagine you have had a long day, and so I appreciate your participation. I love this tool. I think it's very helpful, and so I hope that you find your time today well spent. I would like to thank OCALI for having me today as well, and the opportunity to share this tool with you. So what is visual phonics? It is a system or a tool. It is not a curriculum. It is not a program, which can be wonderful for you because whatever activity or whatever curriculum you are using in the classroom that relates to phonological awareness, literacy, articulation, you can use this in conjunction with that activity or curriculum. Visual phonics consists of 52 hand shapes, prompts, or cues. So you'll hear me use those words interchangeably. And when I'm using those, know that I am describing what I'm doing with my hand to visually represent the sounds. These hand shapes help the child understand how to form the sound. So if articulation is part of the child's goal, then this can help the child think about how to form that sound in their mouth. It was designed with the intentionality to help the child think about placement, where the sound is coming from, or where the articulators should go. And it was designed to feel like and represent the sound. So let me give you an example. The letter T says T. So say that to yourself, T, T, and think about what's happening in your mouth when you say that sound. T. Do you feel your tongue touch the roof of your mouth? I know you can feel that. For a student trying to think about what's happening, they can't see that visually. Your teeth are blocking it. So the visual phonics hand shape helps them think about what's happening in the mouth. So to make that hand shape, we take our index finger on our thumb and we just flick that index finger up. And that helps the child think about that, the tip of their tongue touching the roof of their mouth. There are also written symbols with visual phonics, and those written symbols look like the sounds that they represent. They also look like those hand shapes. So if you look at the symbol on the screen, you will see one line that represents your thumb, so it's a little shorter. Another line that represents your index finger, that's a little longer, and you'll see a curved line in the middle that represents your knuckles there. So this written symbol is designed to help the child think about the hand shape that they created for that. And as you remember, that hand shape is designed to help the child think about the articulators. So those all are designed to work together to help the child better internalize that sound, the placement, and location of it, which can help with articulation or some of those phonological skills. In the next slide, you will see a student, and his name is Aiden. He is in first or second grade in this picture. And the caption reads Aiden, and it says long I and a short I. So in this video that Aiden that we're taking of Aiden, he is practicing the long I and the short I. Aiden also was born in China, and so he was adopted and moved to America at the age of 5. He was profoundly deaf from birth, and so he didn't have an opportunity to learn language while he was in China. And then when he came to America and started kindergarten, we were teaching him not only language, American Sign Language, but also trying to participate in the general education setting, learning letter sound relationships. And so we were able to use visual phonics to help him with that. The students that can benefit from visual phonics, it was designed for children that were deaf and hard of hearing to develop literacy skills and articulation skills. The students that can benefit can have access to sound, but they don't necessarily have to have access to sound. When we first started using visual phonics with Aiden, for example, he did not have access to sound. He later got a cochlear implant, and so he continued to use visual phonics at that time. So I just want you to know that it really has to do more with the students' diverse needs and their strengths, more so than access to sound or not access to sound. This can be used with students that use spoken communication or manual communication. So modality it's not dependent on modality either. Again, it really has to do with the students' unique needs and strengths and what makes sense to them. In addition to students that are deaf and hard of hearing, research has found that this can be helpful for students that need help focusing or have some attention difficulties. This makes sense because the student can actively be involved in a lesson that maybe was before just auditory only, and maybe that didn't hold their interest or keep them actively involved. So now they can actually do the cues along with the teacher, and they can keep their body moving and keep them engaged in that way. Research has found that this can also help students with dyslexia, especially as phonological skills can often be difficult for those students. And so the multisensory nature of visual phonics can help them better internalize and practice those phonological skills. This has also been used with great success with English language learners, as well as children that benefit from multisensory learning. So if you can imagine, that encompasses many of our learners. And so this is just a really great tool to use in your classroom as a universal learning design. So for the remaining time, I'm going to share some specific examples of students that I have taught, so that you can sort of think about, well, how could I use this with my students? So on the right, you will see a picture of a little girl, and she has her hand under her chin and her lips are closed. And that is exactly what we're trying to get her to do in this particular activity. Her name is Riley. And when Riley started preschool, she was having a difficult time getting her lips closed when she said the sounds in the initial position. So her clinical speech therapist said, let's everybody try to get her to get those lips closed for that initial sound. And they had been working on it in therapy, and she just wasn't quite there yet. So we used, I taught her the visual phonics for that. So we got our hand out and placed it under our chin, and then we just moved it forward while drawing a couple of humps in the air as our hand moved out. And so every time we'd say the sound, with a variety of activities, we would do that hand shape with it, and we would ask Riley to do the same. So I love songs, and Riley loves songs as well. So we sang a silly song, to practice this sound in that initial position. And this particular song was about a little green frog. So we would say, "Ah, went the little green frog one day. Ah, went the little green frog. Ah, went the little green frog one day, and his eyes went ah, ah, ah." So every time that we would say that sound, Riley and I would get our hands up, and I'm happy to tell you that she's now able to pronounce that sound in all positions. I also want to share with you, Riley is now in her 3rd year of preschool, and she's starting to learn letter sound relationships and is doing beautifully with this. In addition to that, her articulation has really taken off. And so now Riley is using that same hand shape, but in conjunction with that written word, or that written letter for . This is a picture of Rajiana. Rajiana was born in Ethiopia, and she was adopted and moved to America when she was 3 years old. Rajiana has what they call single-sided deafness. So one ear is profoundly deaf and the other ear has typical hearing. She is considered an English language learner because she had 3 years of learning her native language in Ethiopia. And we have been able to use visual phonics for several articulation and language learning opportunities. Initially, we used visual phonics to help her understand the difference between w, so W says w, and QU says qu. And she had the hardest time auditorily discriminating between those two. And even when we presented the letter, she would often get the two mixed up. And so her ear, her processing of that, she just heard that w at the end. She had a hard time hearing the k at the beginning, but one of the QU. But when we showed her the visual phonics and she could kinesthetically do them, she was better able to categorize them where they needed to go, and then apply those to reading and writing as well. We later used visual phonics for digraphs. She had a difficult time articulating them. And so we were able to use visual phonics to help her with that. She also had a difficult time discriminating them. So when we said a word like shin versus chin, she truly had the hardest time differing between those two. Once we added visual phonics into that, though, and visually showed her shin versus chin, she again was able to categorize them, and her discrimination improved as well. We also used this with great success on her spelling assessments. So what we're working with right now, what we're targeting right now with Rajiana is what we call the FLIZ rule. So we're teaching her that F, L, S, and Z are doubled at the end of a 1-syllable word right after a short vowel. She's able to tell me syllables, and so she can analyze the word and figure out how many syllables are in that word. What she's having difficulty doing is determining if the vowel sound is a short sound or a long sound. So we tried this for a while, just auditorily, is that the short one or the long one? And she would get them mixed up. So we've started to incorporate the symbols that, again, have to do with the hand shape. So she can tell us that short A says ah. And so now we're writing the symbol for short A. And so now she's able to better identify whether the sound is short or long and whether she should double those letters at the end of 1-syllable words. I want to make sure that you think about, though, we're doing this in picture form because she does not yet know the long vowel teams. She hasn't learned silent E yet. So we're just doing this as a phonological activity, this sorting. And that actually helps her build her vocabulary as well, because we're presenting pictures and asking her to identify them. And in doing that, we're finding, oh, she doesn't have a word for this particular picture concept. And so we're able to strengthen her vocabulary skills in this activity as well. This picture shows Rajiana being her very typical self. She has a pot on her head and a spoon in the handle of the pot. And she told me that day she was pretending to be Johnny Appleseed. We were actually making Play-Doh that day, but she had recently learned about Johnny Appleseed. And I just want to always encourage you to have fun with your students. That's the joy of teaching and the joy of learning for them as well. This next image shows you a picture of letters and visual phonics symbols along with them. This is not my wall with all of these letters and symbols. This is a second grade teacher's wall, and she targets digraphs and diphthongs throughout the year. And so she leaves this up for her students as a resource throughout the year. This has been very helpful for her. And every time I see her in the hallway, she says, "Thank you so much for teaching me visual phonics." She initially learned it because she had a deaf child in her classroom. That was 5 or 6 years ago. And she is still using visual phonics in her general education classroom to this day, and says that she has seen such a tremendous improvement in her students' understanding of these digraphs and diphthongs since she has introduced visual phonics. Each day she does a phonological awareness activity that lasts 5 to 10 minutes. And one day I walked in and she was asking the students to listen to the word that she presented. Then the student would repeat it and then isolate the digraph in the word. So she would say chain, and all of the students would repeat chain. And then they would have to think in their mind, which one's the digraph, which is the ch sound. And all the students had learned visual phonics. So then they would also go ch, ch, ch. Another example would be cheese. And all the students would say cheese. And then they would go ch, ch, ch. And the teacher would say sheep. And all the students would say sheep. Shh. The interesting thing from her perspective also is during these activities, she has over 20 students in her classroom. So if somebody didn't identify the correct digraph, she often would miss it because they're just one voice in a large group. But now that there is a visual along with it, she's better able to determine if her students are getting that concept or not, and then address that in her small group sessions or individually later as well, or just provide the model and encourage the students to try again. I'm going to leave you with a website. It's www.seethesound.org. If you'd like to learn more about visual phonics, I encourage you to visit this website. You will find trainers in our great state of Ohio. There are 4. In addition to that, there are now online trainings that are offered nationally. So you could learn visual phonics with individuals from Hawaii. And I always think there's great learning when we have an opportunity to collaborate. So you can check the website for that information. Additionally, the research is listed on that website, and there are many studies listed, and then also a Word document. If you click on that, there are actually hyperlinks to several studies, and you can go read the research articles yourself to learn more about how this is used and how helpful it is. I thank you for all of your attention today. I look forward to our discussion, and I encourage you to write down my email address and email me with questions or suggestions. I love collaboration. I love talking about visual phonics, and look forward to talking with you more.
Thank you so much, Abby, for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. Abby will be on